Welcome to Pure Mind Magic, the show to evolve your mind. Our mind is the most powerful thing we have, but no one teaches us how to use it. When we find out how, we're ready to create magic in life and in business. Learn real mindset secrets from brilliant minds around the world to change your mindset and income level forever. With every decision you make, you create your future. What is your next move? Now, welcome your host, international magician, speaker, and podcast performance consultant, Jennifer S. Royal.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Pure Mind Magic. Thanks for joining me today with my interview with Nicole Holland. I actually met Nicole last year, 2018, in Philadelphia at Podcast Movement. And before, I kind of stalked her already on the web because I listened to so many episodes where she was an interview guest, and it was always amazing and with a great value what she was sharing. So Nicole is a very experienced podcaster and also like a podcast strategist, helping you with how you can use podcasting for your business, and especially how you can get visible using podcasts and other media resources. So Nicole likes to think of herself as the matchmaker because she's very good in connecting people to each other in the business field and also media field, and how you can get exposure. So Nicole already had a very successful show and managed to stay top ranked for such a long time, almost unbelievable. And now Nicole just launched a new show that is completely her style, and it has the cool name of the Nicole Holland Show. So you should definitely check this out. But in today's episode, we are basically talking about how you can become visible. And I think that's really interesting. No matter who you are and what you are doing, you need this media presence online. And she shares some great tips on how you can accomplish that to get a brighter audience for yourself. So maybe you are curious about podcasting and thinking even about creating your own show this year. So a good resource for this is if you check out my book, How Podcasting Can Change Your Life, Unleash Endless Possibilities. That's a really motivational read, and you can get a lot of motivation out of it, and also find out if podcasting is something for you, or maybe you are just interested in doing podcast interviews on other people's shows. So it's a good compendium, and I think it fits with today's episode. But really, Nicole is the expert. She's in Canada, but actually for some time she has already also lived in Germany. And now I would say, without any further ado, let's dive into today's interview with Nicole Holland. Nicole, welcome to the show.
Victoria, thank you so much for having me.
It is a pleasure to have you on today, since we met in person at Podcast Movement in Philadelphia. Nicole, what brought you to the podcasting world?
Good question. So it was back in 2015. I was producing a summit. I produced online summits for a few years. And it was my first summit. And when I did these summits, which for listeners who are not familiar with what a virtual summit is, it's essentially a conference where you learn things. At least this is how I ran it. It's a conference with multiple presenters where you learn things that you don't have to leave your house for, and you can listen in from anywhere in the world. And what I wanted to do was, for new business owners or for business owners who'd been around for a while, but maybe weren't so tech savvy and online savvy, I wanted to bring together over 30 experts on different marketing strategies. So one of the things really frustrated me about summits or any kind of conference or learning is that it felt to me at the time like I was just being given so much information and all these different opinions about the same thing. It really, really bugged me because I thought, let me just understand what this concept is and give me some steps to take to see if it works for me. And so I sought to only give my audience one expert opinion per topic. And one of the topics that was really hot at the time and still is to this day is podcasting. How do you start a podcast? And so this wasn't something I was personally interested in, but I knew my audience was. So I sought out the best podcast, the person who was the top teacher of this and who was very generous and willing to share information. And when I found out that person's name was John Lee Dumas, and I invited him to be a guest on or an expert on my summit. He was, and we had a great interview. And afterwards, he said to me, you know, you're pretty good at this interview stuff. You should consider podcasting. And I thought, oh gosh, no, I don't even have an Apple, because I didn't know what really a podcast was at the time. You know, I thought, I don't have any Apple. I don't have an iPod. I don't really understand that stuff. Not really for me. But I knew the guy knew a thing or two. And so after a couple of months, because I did kind of stay in touch, I checked him out and was looking into podcasting because of what he said, because of that compliment, and then also the feedback from my audience that they wanted to hear more from me. And I said, all right, let's do this. So I joined his program and met with him, and the rest is really history. When we started the show, I didn't have a clear vision of where I wanted it to go. But I just wanted to keep interviewing smart people and connecting. And that's what's really awesome about both from the summit stand and also as a podcast host, getting to interview people who I admired, who I respected, who I thought were brilliant. And over the years now, these people have become such great friends. So that is how I got into it in the first place. And it really spoke to my strengths and my gifts of connecting and also sharing ideas, sharing wisdom, and supporting people in improving their lives and their business.
That is amazing, Nicole. And can you share a little bit your background story before you entered into podcasting? Because I remember when we talked in Philadelphia in this cool sports bar at the after show party, after podcast movement, you mentioned that you have already been in Germany for some time.
Yes. Yeah. So I have a very interesting to some people story. I don't know. It was just my life. So, but it was ups and downs and different things. So I would say my first career field was in marketing, professional sports and entertainment. And I loved it. And I loved, again, it goes back to connecting. It's so funny because the older we get, we sometimes start looking back and we go, oh, I see how the thread came together. But even as a very young child, right, I was connecting people. I was making sure they were happy. I was planning events. I got a citation when I was in grade 8 from the state delegate in Maryland, which is where I grew up, for the intergenerational program and event that I created between senior citizens and middle school children. So it's like this connection and this curiosity about people and about their desires and about how I can help them and support them. It's kind of always been there. And I have found marketing to really allow me to be creative in sharing ways to connect. And so I did that. I also was in the Army very shortly, which I met my ex-husband in, and we got stationed in Germany. And from there, the marriage dissolved, but I loved Germany. And so I wound up staying for a number of years. And while there, I started a corporate training firm. And so I was supporting German business people with how to communicate in English for international communications for a number of years. And I've worked in all sorts of different environments and experiences, primarily with coaching and supporting children and youth in crisis over the years. And finally, when I decided to start my own business online, which that's what I did, and I launched in 2015, that was coming directly from being a correctional officer. So my last date as a correctional officer was December 28th, 2014. It's so crazy to say that because we're recording now. It's been like 4 years. It's wild. And it feels in some ways like it was just yesterday. And in some ways it feels like it was a lifetime ago. But so very varied background. And I wanted to build an online business so that I didn't have to really report to anybody else. I didn't have to work around anybody else's expectations and schedules. And I've just been enjoying the ride since.
Amazing, Nicole. So, and I think there is really the biggest magic in having this online business and really enjoying the freedom it creates around. And through your story, we now know that you obviously have a good background in marketing and you are called a marketing strategist. So let's go back to podcasting. What would you say are the biggest assets you gained through interviewing all these smart people on your show so far?
Oh, the biggest thing is just getting to know people. I love building relationships. I love supporting people. So having these authentic conversations and getting the opportunity to ask the questions that I really want to know, in addition to really nurturing my audience and understanding who they are and how I can serve them through interviewing others. That's been a big part of it. But also, many of my past guests have become friends and mentors. And that's really amazing and fun. And now I have the Nicole Holland show. So I pivoted from weekly. Well, at the very beginning when I launched, I was doing 3 interviews a week. But as I said, this wasn't really strategic. It wasn't really intentional. It was sort of okay, I get what John is saying. I understand this and it makes sense. And okay, this is what I'm going to do. Like I'm good at interviewing. I like interviewing. So that's what I'm going to do. But I didn't have the vision of how that could tie into business building. And it's funny, my brand was Business Building Rockstars. And so on the side, I was sitting there offering coaching services. Meanwhile, people couldn't get enough of me interviewing and then connecting with people. And people had these blocks around that. So over the years, I kind of started losing passion for the show, not because I didn't love the interviews, not because I didn't love podcasting, but because there was this huge disconnect between what I was doing and like in my podcast and what I was doing in my life and in my business. And so I decided to kind of take a pause and rebrand, restructure things so that the podcast really supports my business and that it's in alignment and it's connected rather than being a separate thing that I was doing.
Very clever approach you're taking there. And Nicole, you really help people to get visible. And nowadays, this is so important to really be visible when you would like to create a business, create an online business, whatever. And for sure, podcasting is a great resource or a great tool to help you do that. So let's look at it from the other side. What would you say, Nicole, from your experience and connecting people vice versa, are the biggest benefits from doing podcast interviews, meaning going to other or being a guest at other people's shows?
Well, yeah, thanks for asking. It's actually, my business is called, my program is called Interviews That Convert. And that's what we focus on, which is, I call it podcast guesting. So the act of taking your expertise and your value and sharing that with other people's audiences by being an expert guest on their podcast, which is what we're doing here, right? So you have this amazing show, you focus on mindset, you focus on how to help people create magic. And you inviting me to be on your podcast is such an opportunity, because probably most of your listeners have no idea who I am, right? They hear my name and they're going, I don't know who this is, but I love Victoria, so I'm going to listen, right? And then as they're listening, they right away can tell, is there good synergy? Do they enjoy hearing what I have to say? Do they enjoy my story? Do they enjoy our connection? And if so, they're still listening. And if not, they tuned out a while ago. So it's like, for me to get in front of those listeners who may be enjoying what I have to say, if it wasn't for you, Victoria, there's really very little chance that I would be heard right now from the people listening. How meta is that? But because of this connection and your invitation, I'm able to reach a whole new audience who's going to be familiar with me. And if they enjoy what I say, they may follow me. They may check out my website. They may listen to my podcast, right? So they're getting involved potentially into my ecosystem. Maybe they'll become clients one day. And so this means that I get to expand who I'm touching, who I'm impacting, and who I'm serving exponentially by being a guest on your podcast. And so that's what I love to help people do when they are folks who are experts. They have something to share. They have a big mission. My people are innovators, disruptors, change makers, and thought leaders. They know they're going somewhere big. They just don't have necessarily all of the steps sorted out yet. So from a strategic standpoint, a strategic marketing standpoint, I help them look at, where do you want to go? Where are we at now? I take a sort of an audit of what's going on in their business, and we come up with a plan that's multifaceted to expand their reach and really pump up their visibility. And oftentimes that does involve podcast guesting. And so, that's how I support them and serve them in growing.
Very, very nice said, Nicole. And I think that really makes the benefits crystal clear of, as you said, podcast guesting, this great tool. So you are really an insider when it comes to podcasting, and you already managed to develop a great show. And I also love podcasting too, because it's a little bit like with magic shows. So every episode is different. Also, every magic show is different because you have another audience, and it's never exactly the same, at least in my case. And I love to stay flexible and keep it lively. So you just launched a new show, and this show is called the Nicole Holland Show. Can you share some insights and also your journey to the Nicole Holland Show?
Absolutely. And I love that you brought that up, that flexibility. This is something that I didn't understand when I started my podcast. And this is why I started losing interest in it. It became more of like a to-do, a job, because I didn't recognize that it could be as fluid as I am. And so one of the things about changing the name, and it's funny because I actually got the web domain over a year ago. And it took me really through 2018 to get comfortable with this. So, a lot of people see me or see others as fearless, right? Oh, you'll do anything. And doing anything and being fearless are two separate things. So for me, if I'm very comfortable, that means I'm not expanding enough. It means I'm not stretching myself enough. I was not comfortable when I started my online business to be a public person, to be seen, to be heard, to even have my name attached to anything, right? I had quit my job as a correctional officer, where I was working with murderers and rapists, and really people who really seek to cause harm. And prior to that, I was removing children from unsafe environments. So I've done a lot of crisis support work. I've worked with a lot of folks who don't necessarily want to see people succeed, don't have the best of intentions. And so to put myself out there was terrifying. To put my name out there was terrifying. And I also knew that the prize I wanted was that freedom. Something else I maybe should mention that I didn't, and I don't often talk about, is I was very ill. That's one of the reasons too I quit my job. I felt it was killing me. I had all these physical ailments that the doctors couldn't figure out for a very long time. I've had biopsies. I've had all these different tests. At the end of the day, I wound up starting treatment in May 2015 for lupus. And when I quit my job, there were days I couldn't even walk up and down my stairs. I couldn't cut potatoes. My joints gave out. My lungs gave out. I was ill all the time. I had rashes and blisters all over my body. So what I knew was that by creating an online business, I could adapt my working times and what I was doing to how I felt so that I could heal and I could get better. The other things, I didn't know what I was doing. I had no support. I'd never done an online business before. I had no social media presence. So, and I actually was kind of against Facebook and social media, right? I was really a ghost. I didn't even use I had Facebook for like friends and family that were very close to me, but I didn't have my picture up. I didn't even use my real name. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, Nicole, it's time to come out. And it's time, like, I can't continue to hide and be able to make money online. So stepping into the willingness to do what it took, it was challenging. It was hard. And so every step from that time, from when I quit in 2015 and started my business until now, it's been incremental. And I'm far more comfortable being a public person now, but I'm also still an introvert. There's days I'm exhausted, and so putting myself out there, it's been a process and it's been a practiced process. And I keep trying to move further along. And so back to your question and the mention that I purchased this domain name in 2017, I was extremely uncomfortable, and truth be told, still am slightly uncomfortable using my name as a part of the show. But what I know is this: if I have something called the Nicole Holland Show, it gives me the feeling of flexibility and freedom to go wherever I want to go. And I know that my people, my audience, my fans are going to be with me. So in the Nicole Holland Show, what we're trying right now, it's just launch time. We're just coming out with this 5-day-a-week show. I'm still doing the interviews that people have loved, that I have loved since the beginning. But what's new is I'm twice a week doing solo episodes. And even with that, I even told myself, you know what? If it doesn't have to always be a solo episode. I may bring on friends. I may do like a panel. I could do whatever I want. So for now, we're staying consistent with 3 interviews a week. There's 3 different types. So after 3 years of running the summit, I've just put that to sleep. So now once a week, we have masterclass interviews, which essentially are the types of interviews that I did on the summit, where I bring on an expert to teach a specific tactic step by step so that my audience takes away the how-to of getting started with this, whatever it is. I have the personal journey story, and that's what I've been doing since we launched, where I get to know. It's sort of like how you do. It's like you're getting to know me, you're getting to know my story and what I do and how I serve. And then there's a third kind of interview. People were turning to me often for, Nicole, what webinar platform should I choose? Nicole, what should I go with for my blog? Oh, should I do a podcast? What kind of podcast? All these different questions, because quite frankly, I'm a bit of a geek and I love learning new technologies and trying things out. And then I'm what a lot of people refer to as a truth teller. I'll share my opinions and thoughts in an unbiased way. I mean, as from my bias, but not in the, I'm not promoting things that I don't believe in. In fact, I interviewed somebody who had conceptually an amazing technology service. I thought, my goodness, this is amazing. And then I actually bought it and used it, and it's not good. I can't promote it. So I actually killed that interview. And I'm not putting that out on my show. So the resource share in episodes are for people who want to say, oh, should I do this? Should I do that? And to expose them to opportunities. And then twice a week, it's just me. And, at this point, it's still new. I'm waiting to hear back from my audience. Do they love it? Maybe my audience is going to say this is too much. We don't want to hear all of this. We don't want 5 days a week. Maybe they're going to tell me they want 7 days a week. Who knows, right? So everything now, I feel like by putting my name into this, it's like almost opening myself up more to my audience to say, this is me and you're along for the ride with me. And, we're doing it right now like this, but we can change it anytime. And at the end of the day, what I want is to feel good. I want my audience to feel good. I believe business and life should be fun. It's always too short. And so, yeah. Does that answer your question? I know I've been going long on that, but that's why I changed it. I wanted it to be more, it's more of me in a more flexible and fluid way.
Yes, and I would say you've made an incredible transition there. And I'm really curious, Nicole, because it looks like that there was a really big mindset shift you did from kind of hiding yourself to really going out into public and becoming visible. And I really like this kind and what you've done, because so you are really authentic, helping people to get visible themselves, because you have done it first and all the pitfalls and all the roadblocks, because you have been through it and created now this amazing new show. So what would you say, looking back, caused this mindset shift?
Such a good point. Thank you. First of all, I appreciate that acknowledgement. It's hard to sometimes look at ourselves and pat ourselves on the back. So I definitely appreciate you saying that. I think the mindset shift that was the most integral was when I quit my job, because for many years I felt stuck. I felt inadequate. I felt like I couldn't do things without permission. I couldn't do things without, a paycheck. I couldn't see how I could design my life. And the funny thing is, prior to getting involved in the, I would say first the juvenile justice system and then in the adult justice system, I traveled, I did what I wanted to do. I lived where I wanted to live. I experienced life the way I wanted to experience it. And then for 10 years, it wasn't clear. It wasn't a clear, okay, now I'm giving away my power. It was little by little by little by little to where I did not even recognize it, but I knew I was miserable. And again, I was sick and I was unhappy. I was alone. And so when I made that decision to quit, it was after basically a year of me pulling at straws, looking for a way out, but I was still looking for somebody else to give me that permission. I got my real estate license, I was looking at different jobs I could do. I was looking at, can I leave? Can I leave? How can I leave? And I was trying to figure it out. And I totally had forgotten for those years that the only person I needed permission from was myself. And the only thing I needed to do was take a step. And so I had promised myself, after working a horrific shift, it was the worst shift of my life, overnight, December 31st of 2013, going into 2014, that I would not spend another holiday, Christmas, New Year's, what have you, in the job. And it's actually pretty wild that I'm telling the story right now, because I did not even realize, I didn't put the two and two together until literally just as I'm speaking now, that the Nicole Holland show just launched December 31st, 2018. So December 31st, 2013, when I said no more, I was giving myself this, this year, I guess it would be, but I didn't expect it to take a year. But over the months ahead and turning into a year, I was looking for that permission still. And I knew I was going to leave, but I didn't know how. Well, then in November of 2014, the schedule came out for the Christmas holiday for that year. And once again, as usual, I was working an overnight shift. I was scheduled to work an overnight shift on December 31st, 2014. And I had to really face myself and ask myself, I put others' needs and I put my commitment to others. I've always put my commitment to others first. But I've not always put my commitments to myself first. I've let myself down. And so I really looked in the mirror, figuratively, and I said, what's it going to be? Here's this line in the sand that I made about my life and about my joy and about how I'm living. I promised myself I would not be here for another turn of the year. And right now I'm holding the paper telling me this is what I'm going to be doing. And I decided to keep my commitments. And with that, I had not planned. I did not have savings. I had been out of work for quite a bit. I wasn't full time, so I didn't have benefits. It's like, it was hourly. So yeah, I went, I have like nothing in my bank. I have nobody, no partner, no parent, nobody who's going to support me and pay the bills. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know I'm keeping my commitment. And with that, I drafted my resignation to my boss and I quit. So that was that was really the shift. And from that point, again, there's nobody else paying the bills. It's like either I do what I need to do to live the lifestyle I want to live and be proud of myself, or what's the alternative? And so even though there's days that and challenges along the way, there's always hiccups. It's like there is no not going to do it. There's, days where I'm like, I need to take a break. I honor that. I take care of myself. And then I'm back with a vengeance because there's no other option but to keep on going.
That is so impressive, Nicole, what you have done there. So it's really like you created a new life for yourself, and it started with a thought. And now look what you've done in this few years now with your new show. So tell us everything about it. Where can the listeners find your show and how to listen to it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and thank you. Thank you so much for giving me this platform, this opportunity to share. I always find it fascinating to be on shows where I get to, where the host pulls things out of me that have never been pulled out before. And while I have spoken about different pieces of what we spoke about today, never in the same way. And so I just want to really honor you and appreciate you, Victoria, for this opportunity and for getting me here.
Thanks, and you're welcome, Nicole.
Great. So in terms of the show, it's the Nicole Holland Show. So you can go to thenicolehollandshow.com and you'll be brought right to the website where all of the episodes are. You can listen on the website. You can listen on iTunes, it's Apple Podcasts, on Google Podcasts, on iHeartRadio, wherever you want to listen. You can look for the Nicole Holland Show. And also my website is thenicoleholland.com. And so, or you can also get there from thenicolehollandshow.com. And that tells you more about me. It tells you more about what I'm doing, how to find me on social, all of the things. So thenicoleholland.com or thenicolehollandshow.com, that's my hub.
Perfect, Nicole. And it's also your website where people can find out how to work with you to get you as a marketing strategist, as a connector of humans, or as a coach to help get visibility through podcasting and maybe even other media tools, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. thenicoleholland.com. You'll find everything there.
So I will put all the links directly into the show notes for the listeners to make it easy, accessible to find you and connect with you and learn more about your amazing story and your brand new Nicole Holland show. So Nicole, thank you so much for being on Pure Mind Magic today. And I really hope to see you again in August in Orlando at the Podcast Movement 2019.
Without a doubt, I will see you there.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for listening to today's episode with my guest, Nicole Holland, talking about podcasting. And if you like, you can check out my book, How Podcasting Can Change Your Life, Unleash Endless Possibilities on Amazon. The link will be in the show notes for you. So the weekend is coming up and next Wednesday, I will have prepared for you another episode, another midweek motivation, telling you something out of the magic world that you can use for your business and your life. So speak then, and until next time, create some magic.